Okay, so excited to start our Healing Through Story call tonight. So just like our last discussion we had, we're just going to have, it's going to be real open to chatting. This time I decided we're not really going to do intros. We're, more familiar with each other now, I think. And I really want to get into some of the discussion as well as I have some prompts today. So we'll do kind of like a little bit of like journaling through some things and then discussing those pieces. So today is healing through story, and I think that this is such a layered concept where as humans, right, we learn through story. We our brains are designed to apply stories. We literally try on scenarios through story. And that's why storytelling has lasted. It has helped to protect us from danger. It has done all sorts of things. We've used it in our marketing, everything. Story is everything. Actually, I have a sticker that's one of my favorite stickers. We are all stardust and stories. And if you think about stories, Mike's here. If you think about stories, we have so many layers of it. Not only the stories that, hi, Mike. Not only the stories that we read and absorb that create the narrative within our minds, right? But then we also have like these stories that we tell ourselves each day, the limiting beliefs that can kind of catch us off guard, keep us small, keep us from moving into what we truly want to do. And as writers, we get like, that's a big piece of what holds us back, what creates writer's block, is the stories that we tell ourselves, right? We just did a whole thing on the podcast about writer's imposter syndrome. So if you've ever experienced that, or if you are currently experiencing any imposter syndrome around your writing, please go check that out. And so I guess without further ado, does anyone have anything they want to say about storytelling, how they have healed from it, any perspectives, anything? Remember, this is an open discussion, not so much like a workshop. We're all writers together that are just like helping each other grow. So anyone have any 2 cents? I know, Google Meets. You can do it, Cindy. I believe in you. It's the microphone button.
Can't find it, so let me go then.
Okay.
Hey, so again, newbie here. Help me understand what storytelling means. Is it it's a relation of a series of events? Is it a parable? I guess maybe that's where I want to start at. Is help me understand when I'm trying to write in storytelling mode. I don't know how to kind of flip that switch in my brain to be, okay, I'm going to tell a story.
Okay. I love this question. Okay. Because you have storytelling is in everything. Okay. It is the songs you listen to, the books you read. Like, I think, because I know you are a very educated, analytical person. And so a great example of storytelling could just be learning history, right? So if you're writing a book on history, that is still storytelling, right? Or you can write a poem, and that poem could have a piece of a story woven into it, right? I think sometimes it's so ingrained in who we are as beings, like as our species, that sometimes it can kind of fall to the wayside where we don't even realize where story is playing a role in our life, which I think is part of where, diving into topics like this can be really helpful for us, not as writers, but even as humans. Cindy, did you figure out your microphone?
I had to look it up. I'm like, how do you unmute yourself on Google Meets? But I was gonna say, I love that you mentioned, how story translate, because then the story that you're telling yourself, right? You haven't even put it down on paper yet, but the story that you're telling yourself, your inner dialogue, and the story you're telling other people. Because I kind of, as a writer, sometimes have to disconnect myself from the thoughts that are just streaming in my head. So then I just write. I'm like, okay, da, 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 and then I find this voice, and I'm just like, okay, this other voice that wants to come out. So then I love how we tell ourselves the story, whether it's true or not, whether it's made up, whether, all of these things. And then you blend kind of like what you're thinking in there versus your reality versus this fantasy that you have, all of this stuff. So I just love that we talk about stories and how writing is writing, but the story, there's so many texture, there's so many elements, and there's so many of that in there.
Yeah, I love that perspective too, because like I feel like I see things in a spider web more than like I feel like a lot of times people see things very more linearly, but I think also as writers, it's more common for us to see things in a more nuanced way or a unique way, right? And so if you think about having, so just like a little personal information here, but like I had a story that went along in my mind for a really long time that I was not intelligent, that I could not read, I could not write, I was not smart enough to do these things. And that was a story that I held on to. And because this narrative started in my mind, I didn't do any of these things, right? I didn't write. I attempted one time, and then I just got all up in my head, and I was just like, that's it. I can't. I'm just not meant for this. I'm not smart enough for this, right? You have this story that goes along in your mind, and that story can then interrupt how you move in the world, right? But then if you have a story that you tell yourself, that impacts your writing as well. So like say you have a different narrative. You have a narrative of like, well, I'm a woman and I'm only meant to be perceived and stuff. And so you write a character who is basically just there to be perceived by the male gaze. And then maybe as you move on your journey of like identifying and embracing yourself as your truth and not as like how you are absorbed or perceived by others, maybe your character starts going on that whole journey. And then maybe somebody reads that book who is in the midst of that journey as well, and they see themselves in that main character, and it sparks them to go down this journey of like, okay, wait, how am I trapped in this patriarchal view, and that spirals down. And that's where like even in nonfiction, right, we use storytelling in nonfiction to help people identify these things, so we can tell them, oh, based on the patriarchy, blah blah blah, you're like the female gaze and the male gaze and blah blah blah, right? But then if you put it into, in my experience during this circumstance, they can then try on, they're like, oh, that's so much like my experience that I had with this and that. And then you give them that information, and that information helps them apply it, helps them give them something. But then also in a fiction lens, right, they're going through this journey with this character, and they're identifying themselves with this character. And that's, so that's like a really quick way of like looking at how our stories create our stories, which impact their stories, So yeah, I love that. Anyone else have anything to say? Peggy, you're quiet. Okay. All right. So first thing I have a prompt here. And so we're going to do some prompts, but we're only going to spend like a few minutes on each one so we can have like time for discussion and stuff. Feel free to like journal it out if you want, or you can just like stare into space and ponder things. It's up to you. I do that a lot. I sit there, I'm like, huh. and I completely disassociate. So it's totally fine, whichever avenue you want to go down. So our first journal prompt, I will type it up in here as well. So that way, if you forget it, like I will absolutely do, you can just read it in the chat. What book or books have helped you on your healing journey, and in what way?
Where, or you didn't put it in yet?
No, I'm typing it now.
Okay, because I was like, I don't know where the chat is because everybody else I know uses either like Zoom or Microsoft Teams at work. So
All right. Did you see it pop up? All right.
hmm.
All right. Start wrapping up your thoughts. I'll give you like another minute or so. Alrighty. So who wants to share first? Anyone want to share?
I could.
Go for it.
I'd say the artist's way. And I've been in like 3 different book groups doing that. One is like an art therapy membership where they every week like took one of the chapters and did some art. I didn't do all the weeks, but I at some point will go back and do some. But I went in person last year and now by Zoom, just discussing it with people. And I find that very helpful because we all catch different things that are important to us. And to just discuss it with others, you see things that you don't just see yourself, you know.
Yeah, Julia Cameron has some really, really amazing work. I really liked her book, The Right to Write. That book was so awesome. Whenever we do our writer's book club, The Right to Write will absolutely be on it. And maybe if we get so bold, we might all like do a writer's way 12-week challenge. I don't know. Or, yeah, 12-week challenge. That would be wild. That would be a heck of a challenge for all of us to like go about doing it together. But I totally agree. Have you ever found a fiction book that has really like done a number on you, like really transformed things? Because I feel like with nonfiction, we're seeking the nonfiction for growth. And so it's really easy to find, like, I could come up with 3 like that. And then I'm like, but wait, what about fiction? And I'm staring at my bookcase to look at all my books, like, okay, which one did I find to be like healing?
Well, I just always like used to just love reading like romance novels because they would just make me happy, you know. But
Yeah.
it's I don't know that I would categorize it as healing, but maybe it is if you feel kind of depressed and you can read something that makes you feel happier, you know.
Yeah, I have, oh my God, I just saw the biggest raven fly by. Sorry, I have ADHD. Okay.
Yeah, me too.
I think that's really common for us writers to be a little on the neurospicy side. Yeah, because like I have David knows this. You're a Badass by Jen Sincero. We had a whole discussion about this
I wrote
before.
it down.
Yeah.
I wrote it down. It's one of mine. I'm in the middle of You're a Badass with Money, not having the same transformational effect.
Yeah.
Like the first one's hard to, when you ring a bell, it's hard to ring it as loud the second time when the first one just changes everything. But yeah, so I'm all in on that one for sure. And the artist way, I'd forgotten I had read that years ago. It didn't resonate with me. I was not at a time in my life where I could hear that message, nor did I want that message. So I would say that's another thing that I'm really focusing on, is that I can't hear wisdom until I'm ready for it. And that's a lesson that try to teach the other people in my life and see that and recognize that as well, because I just like want to shake people. I'm like, are you kidding me? But they're not ready, and I wasn't for a lot of different lessons in life.
Yeah, well, and that's such a great point too, because like whenever we have something that comes into our life at the right time, that's what makes it so healing, is because of the timing of it, really, because there's a lot of brilliance out there and we can look at them all and be like, yeah, that's really great advice. But then, because I mean, I told you the whole story about You're a Badass. I read that and it literally changed the course of my life, because I was in a place where I really needed that guidance, and I really needed that feeling of, Jen Sincero's writing is so, like your cool aunt, and I needed that like kind of wise but fun elder to tell me all of the things that I needed to hear, and I literally am here in this place in my life because of that book. Like that was the branch in my timeline, you know what I mean? So yeah, that one was definitely
Well, thank you for turning me onto that, because it's put a whole new branch on my timeline too.
Heck yeah.
And giving me permission. So if anyone hasn't read it, go check it out. It just gives you permission to just be your badass.
Yeah.
and I needed to hear it again. I'd lived a bunch of my life just adventurously and always felt almost ashamed of that a little bit, just like I can't believe how many risks I take and how many places I go and how many dreams I chase. And I'm unapologetic now. Like I think I've limited myself in some areas because I wasn't able to completely, do it. So that was a gift for me. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. My other one was Big Magic. Has anyone read Big Magic? That one's by Elizabeth Gilbert, and it was fantastic. It was one of the ones that really got me. There you are.
Hey, I'm doing stuff while I'm listening. Sorry. Sorry, but Big Magic, that was on my list. So I was like, yes, I can't let you talk about it because it's what I got. But yeah, Big Magic was huge for me around not necessarily the healing. I mean, I guess it was more creative healing and coming into a different mentality around creativity and how we're gifted, what we're gifted, and our stories and our message, and how if we delay too long, we potentially could miss the opportunity. And so it really helps every time I start to have imposter syndrome, or I think I can't do this, or I'm not going to do this. I think, but the universe gave it to me. And I'm going to be so upset if I don't act and the universe gives it to someone else because I took too long and the message needed to be out there. So for me, Big Magic was hugely transformational because of that message in and of itself. And I mean, her new book that's coming out, the River one or whatever it is, I think it's going to go more into this, but also a lot on just self-love and not seeking that in others, but finding that in yourself really was very resonant with me also with Big Magic. I just love Elizabeth Gilbert. Anyhow, I'm like a total groupie.
It's so interesting because like some of these writing books that are like so impactful, like that one you said creative healing, absolutely. That's what it was. Like that was the healing that it did. Because I feel like as we get older, when you reach a certain age, it's like, oh, we put away childish things, right? And so much of childhood is so much creativity. Everything we do with children is based around creativity, just about. And they hit like high school and we start taking it away. And it's like, oh, this is what adults do. And so then we're, in our 30s and we're like, I feel stuck in life, but I really want to write, but like that's so childish or whatever. Like we have all these narratives that go in my head and go in our heads. And I feel like also with a lot of these books on writing, so much of them come down to my mindset. Like to overcome a lot of these mindset hurdles and heal these pieces of us are so vital for us to become the writers that we're meant to be. So yeah, thank you for sharing that one.
Hey, I want to share one more if I could. When I read The Artist's Way, it was at the same time that my brother-in-law introduced me to Del Close and the improvisation techniques that he kind of championed and founded with out of Chicago. And the troops that he worked with. And he wrote a book called Truth and Comedy, the Manual of Improvisation. And I think that gets back to some creativity that I never learned how to do, which is spontaneous creativity. And it is a challenge for me sometimes to write with that spontaneity of creativity, because sometimes I'm practicing those 3 pages a day since, for the last month or so. And it's easy for me to run out of things to write. So I try to just tap into my creativity, and that's like a muscle that I'm still learning how to turn on.
Yeah,
But
the
that was
self-editing,
really cool.
right?
Yeah, yes, definitely. And you've got to just give yourself permission to be silly and to think of outrageous and obscure things and how they might fit together or contrast or. So anyways, that was one that I have found to be helpful. Just the yes and mindset.
Yeah, absolutely. Who else? Go for it.
You guys, I love books so much. Like I was telling David in our interview, I'm like, books raised me. Like that was my childhood. So I have 3 books. I was so excited when you asked on your healing journey, because I'm like, the first book on my healing journey was when I was a kid, Cloudy with a Chance of Meatball. When I read that book, I'm like, what the what? What the what? It just challenged me, because I came from such like structure and like, you know, you got to work hard, you got to do all of this stuff. And when I read this book, I'm like, what is happening to me? Meaning I was able to tap into an imagination that, you know, as a child, you have imagination, but then you get programmed of like, no, you got to be a responsible adult. So that book, one of my life-changing books of just like, wow, look at the imagination in there. Look at where you can take your life. Because I didn't read it as like a, you know, as a fiction book. I went, wow, this can happen because it's in my imagination and I've already have it happen there. So that was the first book that in my healing journey of like, wow, I can really create a life because it's in this story. And the second one that's along the theme is The Secret. When I learned The Secret, learned how to manifest, I went from victim to like, I am the creator of my life. And then it was just kind of like, oh, now I get to be a different way in the world. Now I get to, you know, be different characters. I can try, and writers, we're actors as well, right? We got to try on this. We got to try on this with this narrative from this. Oh, like, oh, and then you get to do all of that stuff. And then the third book, you guys, I'm so excited. I don't know if you guys can tell. The third book is The Alchemist, which I read every single year. Every single year I read The Alchemist, right? From a child to this, because The Alchemist, I was like, wow, I'm going to suffer and it's okay, because that's part of the hero's journey. I'm going to be the hero. I'm going to be the drunk. I'm going to be the person that doesn't know. I'm going to be the sheep. I'm going to be this, because if you tell one of the best stories, you identify with all of them, because there's a piece of that in all of you. And this is why I'm just like, I can be the hero of the story. I can be the villain of the story. I can be, you know, the drunk of the story. Am I drunk today? Am I going to be lazy? And I'm making fun of drunk people. Am I going to be lazy on here? And some days I'm like, yeah, I'm going to be drunk. I'm not going to do anything. But then that helps me with the narrative that I'm telling myself. So those, okay, there's so many more books, but those are the 3 that jumped out at me of just my healing journey of like becoming who I want to become.
Yes. Oh my God, I didn't even think of The Alchemist. I've read that so many times, and I use that as an example for people, or like lessons for my son all the time. And I didn't put that on my list because I haven't purchased it and it's not in my bookshelf yet. Oh my gosh. I cannot believe I didn't think about that one. But yeah,
You guys,
whenever
I have books. Like I love books.
I know. I have 2 bookcases and I don't have The Alchemist on it yet because I listened to it. Yeah. And that's, I think, such a great point about fiction books is it helps you dream. We are taught to stop dreaming so early in our life. And I feel like it's getting a little earlier. It's a little scary. And so that with fiction books is one of the big healing components of it is it gives you a new reality to dream in and it helps you see what's possible. One of mine is Delilah Green Doesn't Care. Couldn't remember the other half of it. Delilah Green Doesn't Care. And it's a sapphic romance. I have never been a romance person. I am romantic as hell in relationships, but as far as consuming romantic content, it has never been my bag. And that book, all these people, all these queer people were like, oh my God, you got to read Delilah Green. I'm like, okay, well, let's see. Like, let's try. I devoured that book because it was a character that I could see myself in, having a relationship with another person that I could see being in a relationship with. It was sapphic love. And I had never consumed anything that felt true, like a true sapphic love story. And like, because, you know, in movies and TV, it's always like fetishized, right? It's never like, it's like always like 2 straight women who are pretending to be gay, right? And so written by a man, you know? And so it was so true. And I'm like, oh, it's not that I don't like romance. I don't like straight romance. I don't like, and so that one really like opened my mind a lot creatively, and what I can imagine. Oh my God, Kat, you scared me. What I can imagine for my writing, but also like just playing out in my life, in my head, like, okay, what kind of relationships I was newer out, I hadn't been out for very long. And so I didn't have a whole lot of relationships like that I could draw on. So talking about, where fiction plays that role and how we develop and heal that like creative element of us is so freaking huge. Mike, we haven't heard from you today. Do you have any 2 cents?
I do. I've just been listening. So honestly, I was trying to think. Unfortunately, I grew up with more movies than books. I read books, but I more listened to movies and then went on to, I quit listening to music to listen to podcasts and then other stuff like that. So I'm trying to get back into reading more. But as far as like books, like one of the books that really changed stuff was a physics book. I don't remember the name of it, but it just because at that time it opened me up to possibilities. Like all of a sudden, all these things that say that you can't do, and then the physics book was like showing me how things work. And I was like, okay, that makes sense. And then that led me to string theory. And I don't know a lot about that kind of stuff, but in general, just it opens up the possibilities because magic to me is a lack of knowledge. Like the things that we considered magic 100 years ago are real now. And then, but as I thought more, an actual book that I did read that really meant a lot was You Were Born Rich by Bob Proctor. I couldn't remember the name of it. I had to look it up. But because up until then, being a movie buff, I realized that watching movies and playing games, you kind of live vicariously through the character. And movies like Willow and stuff like that, where someone comes in, recognizes your worth, and says, "Oh, you are valuable. Here, let me take you under my wing." And so my whole life, I was like, I knew I was meant to do something great. Where's the somebody looking for that somebody? Every time I try to do something, I bounce better off other people. So that must mean I'm waiting for somebody important. And what I realized on reading that book is that it not in that moment, but it really like was the catalyst to me realizing that me, my higher self, me, my future self, me, what I'm going to do is that person that sees the potential inside of me. So it's not that I just have to, go through life like a sailboat in the middle of the ocean waiting for someone to rescue me, that I can rescue myself by seeing the potential. And then what would that person look like? What mindset would they have? And so that book kind of was my catalyst towards really like healing myself and also removing limitations and recognizing limitations. And that writing in general, journaling has really helped me to, because I'm very reflective and I'll sit there and I'm very analytical. And usually that's to my demise. I overthink, but in writing, I'm able to use that to kind of like, and another thing too, one thing actually I was going to ask. So when I'm writing, I have this thing of where things have to make sense. And it's almost like I get hung up creating the world in the background instead of the story. So it's like once the world's there, it'll make sense for the story. And so if that's something at a later date that we could address, that's one thing I think I'd like to work on is to just push through the storyline instead of all the like the whole layout of it. If that makes sense.
Oh my gosh.
I was just saying, can I
Rachel,
address that? Because they talked about that last night. That was the thing I told you that I was on this world building thing with people who did screenplays. And they said that first you do the world building, and they say you can do that research with like Chat GPT or something because it does it really fast. And you think of like what their background is and what the whole environment is first. So that's all laid out. Then you put your story in the world. So you don't come up with the story first and then make the world. That's why you're kind of getting stuck. So you generate the world, and then the characters are in the world. And
that is, yeah, that's great. Yeah. When, like, cause you have to know where you're at, right? Like if you were,
like who they are, like as
right.
people, how they would react to whatever you throw at them.
Right. Like how are they interacting with their space around them and stuff. Yeah. It's Rachel in our group. She's my co-host on the podcast and stuff. She is so brilliant with this stuff. And she's building this whole world and storyline and stuff like that. And she's like, you know, you're a Virgo too, right? Yeah. So happy early birthday. It's almost Virgo season. And she is so great at like organizing it all. I am a chaos writer. And so I'm sitting there, I'm typing things out, and I'm just like, oh, that's what the world is like. Okay, cool. Like there's no rhyme or reason. My one of my books, I knew where I was. Like it's a retelling in Norse mythology, and so I knew where the world was, and so I just had to like lay out that story. But when it comes to like actually building out that story, when you're at that phase, like if you do all your world building, right, and then you're at the phase of like creating your story, Rachel has this like concept. We have a person, it's going to be on the podcast really soon. We've already recorded it. We're just scheduling it out. Who talks about skeleton blurbs. And I'm telling you, this stinking little 2-sentence thing is like life-changing for a writer. I think having her on and having like one of those kind of like let's talk world building and storytelling type of thing, like that would be probably a really great community call, or maybe a workshop that we do in the community kind of thing. So thanks for the inspiration. I love that. I also love all like the physics stuff, because like true, like looking at like science can open your mind so much. And I think that's why, you know, people love to listen to people like Bill Nye and Neil deGrasse Tyson, is because they say these things and you're like, wait, my entire worldview has changed, you know, and it starts getting you to like think more broadly. And that's, I think, a huge part of the healing process that we go through whenever we're reading or absorbing different content is just to shift our worldview. I have a sticker. I have another sticker that says, read books, change the world. And it's so true, because it changes us. And when we change individually, we create this domino effect of change around us, and then it keeps rippling out. And so that kind of leads me into, let's see, we got 20 minutes.
Can
What's
I
that?
say something? Can
Go
I say
for
something
it.
about books? I want to bring up that, you know, because you brought up, you know, being out and things like that, that there is safety in books. Like, you know, just to read the books, to be immersed in it, and, you know, trying out or experimenting of like, hey, this is what I'm into. Like, there's nobody judging you, right? You're reading a book. There's safety that is built into that. So then I, you know, didn't think of it until I was older, of just like, it's never crossed my mind that somebody reading the book can be so scared and find safety in there of like, oh, I see them, I identify with them, and then maybe I can be a little braver. And I know that it's just kind of like, oh, it inspired me, but I think safety is such a big one, because you literally have to become yourself in secret sometimes, because you can't share it with the whole world. Otherwise, you're going to get judgment. You're going to get all of this stuff. So for me, I've always said my greatest teachers are books. It's like spiritual teacher. Like I love Oprah. I love all, but for me, the safety of just learning, which a nonfiction one I read recently was What My Bone Knows. It's a nonfiction about complex PTSD. And I'm like, oh, that's what I have, complex PTSD versus regular PTSD. And the safety in reading about somebody else's story, to the safety, I'm like, okay, I can hold myself in that space, because I don't have to tell nobody I'm safe in this world. Just wanted to.
Right? No, legit. That is 100%. As a queer person, you know, who grew up in the South feeling unsafe as a queer person, that is 100%. The safety in experiencing this stuff in books is massive. Natalie Naudis, she's an audiobook reader and writer, and she talks a bit about this. She grew up in a cult, And through reading these queer books, she realized and processed a lot of her trauma that came with living in this hyper religious cult. And like, but the safety of doing it, oh, I'm just reading it for work, I'm getting paid to do this, what do you, right? That safety allowed her to explore it internally and eventually come out and stuff. Like, it's so important. And I think also with different types of books, like if you're going through something, having those books, which, like, again, memoir is literally the power of fiction writing with a true story. I think memoir can be the most powerful and impactful writing that we can possibly do as writers, because it's, again, storytelling, right? How our brains work and understand things, but also it's true. It's something like, oh, I can see that you've been through this. I can see how, like, the pathway forward. I can identify myself in you and see that I can get out of this complex PTSD, you know? And that's, it's so powerful. Thank you for bringing that up and making me become so freaking extra. We got 15 minutes left in our chat here. So this is, I'm skipping prompt 2 because we kind of talked a bit about it already. It's just like what type of writing helps you and stuff. I know journaling. But then, anyways, that's skipped. We're going to go to the writing that you're doing with your books or writing. How do you intend to help your readers on their healing journey? It's in the chat if you need it. All right. For those I can see, it seems like we're just about wrapping up. Give you another minute. Thumbs up when you're ready. Alrighty. So, who wants to go first in talking about their writing? David, I know you got a book in the publishing process right now. You want to talk about that one?
This is my favorite question. Like, I love the last one because it opened up a lot of new places for me to go and read and learn and develop. But I haven't answered this until now with what I'm doing. I had a loose feeling of it, but this is really helpful for me. I'm writing a series of books. The first one is written for entrepreneurs to basically help them prepare to exit their business and establish a family trust, to start to prepare their family for receiving the money, and for them really to have their legacy story, kind of thought through by themselves and then shared and then lived through their family. So the first book is written to help them do all of those things. And then the second book is written for the family members to receive their wealth, know what's expected of them, their place in the, kind of the hierarchy, how to grow inside of that. And then the third one is my memoir, as well as a kind of a how-to on how to write their memoir. And this is a great question because I would, my wish is that when they get to the third book, that they'll have the self-reflection that helps them, heal themselves, allow them some personal growth. But my intent is for them through the first two books to strengthen and heal the family bonds, for them to reconcile any past trauma they've either lived through with financial situation from their birth and the family, all the way through to how they treated and brought trauma in the lives of their current family situation. So what a heavy burden all of a sudden that I'm staring down the barrel of is what I'm asking the readers of these books to take. But this is a great exercise for me, as I'm going to continue to use it to help me shape and guide my writing. So thank you.
Yeah, and one of the things, like, in like the book planning process, right, when I take people through the as a coach, right, and we're going kind of through the book planning process, one of the things that we cover is what's called the ripples of impact. And this is so important. Like, when you're first starting a book, in my opinion, I call it the heart of your book. Like, you have to know what the impact is of like the layers of impact, because it's like your book is an onion. It's got a lot of layers. And so the layers of impact that your book has, and one of those, my dear, one of those layers is how it's healing somebody. Like, where is it playing a role? Like, so that way when they start your book, they're a different person to when they finish your book. And my cat is driving me nuts. And so when you're approaching some of your work, right, especially when you're approaching a new project, thinking of something along these lines can be so powerful in lining you up with your reader. So that way your book not only, or your writing or whatever, not only feels really good and true to you, but it deeply resonates and transforms your listener or your reader. So yeah, I'm working on 3 books right now, so I have a lot. Does anyone want to go before me? No? Cool. So I have 1 book, my mythological retelling of Norse mythology, for Loki's story. The things that I want people to get, my intention going into this. I actually, initially, when I started writing this book, I had a specific person in mind. I'm like, I'm writing this book for her. So that way, when she reads this book, she can see that there's a way out, that it's okay to be the villain in someone else's story, that it's okay to leave behind the people who harm you, even when they're family, and that there is another, that like there are people out there who will love you and support you throughout this like healing journey of everything. And so it's about recovering from people pleasing, identifying chosen family, and healing through that love. And so I'm writing it for those people. My second one is embracing whimsy, recovering from overworking, and following your purpose, which is for me because I have a tendency to overwork, and I, like my main character, fell into a career that was like purpose adjacent. You know, it was like, it was close, it was on its way, right? When I was copywriting, I was like, well, I'm writing. I know I want to write, but I have so much imposter syndrome, so much like, you know, mindset issues and stuff that, you know, you stay in that because it's close enough so you don't feel awful, but it's still not completely there, right? And my world was books. That's where I wanted to be. Book coaching and writing books. This is my lane. And so this book, I'm hoping, will help my readers embrace the whimsy, recover from overworking, and to follow their purpose. And then my third one is a nonfiction, and it is about learning how to channel your writing, to get out of the overthinking and move into creative flow. So, so that's what I'm hoping will help my readers there. Mike, you want to take it away?
Yeah, I wasn't too sure. I was kind of thinking, like I said, I had the story I wrote way back when and started, but I'd have to sit there and think about it. But one thing I noticed as I was reflecting what I want to do with my coaching business that I'm trying to get off the ground and what it looks like, what was the core of it. And there were really three things, because as part of my journey in the last year alone is really just giving myself the permission to love myself, to empower myself, and have compassion for myself. Because all these things, you know, you give away your power to somebody else. Self-love is conceited and you're being arrogant and you're overlooking others. And then compassion, you have compassion for everybody else, but not yourself, and your inner child healing, whatnot. And so I was just toying with the idea because that's kind of like the main three areas, I think, like the foundation for what I stand for and what I want to build. And from a writing aspect, I was thinking, you know, how could I incorporate that? And it really wouldn't be hard to incorporate that into a storyline, at least the very much like being is that like the old English and knights and stuff. That's the kind of stuff that I grew up loving, and the magic and the wizards. And in that, like I could actually like self-empowerment being, and really another thing too with the self-love, the empowerment is trusting yourself that you're not going to that. And if you do see yourself extending your power and, you know, pushing your will upon others, that you're going to recognize that and you'll keep yourself in check. So someone that would come and like maybe be like the most powerful in the story but everybody like would push them down. And so I kind of think like I could take some of my childhood and some of that incorporate. And I really kind of, I think this is going to be something that, if nothing else, will be a useful exercise in writing it out and creating a story based around that theme. So I really kind of think that's where I want to go.
You're just inspiring all sorts of things for me tonight, Mike, because like now I'm sitting here like, oh, we absolutely need to do a workshop or a call on character psychology, because that's what it sounds like. You have your characters going through, like they have this life event, right? And these circumstances, and then they have to go through a character arc that's separate, like that's part of the story arc, right? It's because stories are layered, right? So you have your character, you have your story arc here, but then you have your character arc that goes through, and so your character is going through all of these different phases, and so if you look at it from a psychological lens, it can actually help you build your story because you know that in order to get to their final destination, right? And that's part of having a very character driven narrative, because you have different types of stories, right? You have ones that are very character driven, like Ted Lasso is a great example, is a very character driven story. The actual like things that happen, the events don't play a huge role in where in what's going on, right? But the characters and the relationships, that is everything. But then you have something more of like Lord of the Rings, that's a little bit more of like first this happens, then this happens, so it's very event driven. That doesn't, obviously there's plenty of character development and relationship and that, but anyways, so you just inspired a whole thing. So I'm gonna stop going on a tangent again about another thing that makes me happy and excited. So
Well, I think too, we were talking when I had mentioned earlier about my story in the fact of spending so much time waiting and thinking I had to be saved by some outside circumstance that would see the true me. And I actually think that would be something good in the storyline to where instead of some outside somebody, maybe something would happen that would force them to look inside themselves and realize that they can stand up without the need for that. And I think that would also be helpful. And then somewhere in there, for some reason, I kind of want to write from an aspect of like a band of misfits, like finding your family, finding your soul tribe, and then stumbling along through success.
yeah, and like Cindy said, it's moving from victim mentality into manifestation, mastering, stepping into your power mentality, right? And that is so impactful for readers because it's so easy for us to be in a victim mentality, especially I feel like as people who are marginalized, because we can see that the systems are stacked against us more, and so it's easy to fall into like, well, what am I going to do? I'm always going to get paid less because I'm a woman, right? It's so easy to fall into that, but so other tangent over. What do you have? Anyone else? Cindy?
I love this community, by the way, because I'm very distinct in my writing. So I have like Word documents on my Google Drive. I have an erotic fantasy that I have started. I have an agent crime novel, and then I have, poems. So I know which one to go into and to do that. But the only one that I have started a book cover that I've started, the bio that I've started, is a memoir. So what I want people to do from this memoir, because it's going to talk about my childhood all the way up to how I became the creator of my life, is I want to make my readers to be okay with shame. I want people to hear my story because I was molested at 5 years old. I've been on welfare half my life. I have, again, been marginalized as a woman in a tech field, all of this stuff. And I just want to put my story out there for myself, for my inner child, for myself, of like, hey girl, you turned out okay. Not only did you turn out okay, you're fucking killing it. I'm going to write for that inner child part of me. And then for other people to say, wow, look at her. It wasn't just that, hard work. It was the mindset. It was the determination, because I'm just like, this is my life. Who gets to control my life? Because all of those voices and all of this thing. So really, to heal myself, I have already healed, but we're always healing. But really to allow people to just go, wow, shame is okay, and that it doesn't have to be, we got to go through what we got to go through and heal all of the stuff. But that I'm just like, oh, I'm ashamed I just ate that pizza. The same way like I'm ashamed that I'm poor. You know what I mean? I want to normalize that we go through shame. I want to normalize that we go through suffering. I want to normalize that it's okay to not be okay. So that's the next one, the memoir.
Okay. So stay tuned, because I'm working on a group coaching program about healing through memoir. And it's about the healing process that we go through, but also the healing process that we guide people through in writing your memoir. So stay tuned for that. Also, I am planning a writer's retreat that is all about storytelling, healing through story, all of that stuff. So keep up to date. That's going to be in Ireland, by the way. I'm so freaking excited about it. I've been doing like literally all sorts of planning for it recently. It's going to be happening in June. So stay tuned. Peggy, Karen, do you guys have anything that you wanted to share before we wrap up?
Not really.
No. Okay.
I've been working all day. I'm just tired. And my next writing thing on query letters and book proposals is starting in like 25 minutes. So.
Okay. All right. And I know Peggy.
Hey, I am like still conceptualizing, as you know, so I don't really think I have a lot to offer at this moment in time.
No worries. No worries. This was a fantastic call. So glad you guys came, and thank you so much for sharing your thoughts and feelings with me. I'll have the recording posted in the community. And also, final thing, open mic night is actually happening. I got a post in the community officially, but just before this, I decided the day that we're going to do it. So September 3rd at 7 o'clock, we're going to have open mic night. Come share your poetry, share your journal entries, share parts of your chapter, song lyrics, whatever you want to share. We're just going to kind of give 5 minutes or so for each person. And see how many people show up and how much we can fit in the hour. And just to kind of keep supporting each other. And like Mike had said in the community, it's a little easier when it's just like, oh no, I know I have a date coming up, instead of just like sharing willy-nilly in the writer's show and tell section. So it's going to be another fun way of sharing our journey, sharing our writing. So thank you all for coming, and I will see you in the community.